Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya Ashtoru Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya Ashtoru Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Anantikoti Vaishnava Vrind Ki Namacharya Slaridas Thakur Ki Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrind Ki Shri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Navadip Dham Ki Gangamai Jamunamai Ki Bhakti Devi Tulasi Devi Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So we'll be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 21, text number 36. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Aho mamami vitarantya anugraham Harim gurum yagna bhujam adishwaram Swadharma yogena yajanti mamaka Nirantaram shonitala dridavrata Aho mamami vitarantya anugraham Harim gurum yagna bhujam adhishwaram Swadharma yogena yajanti mamaka Nirantaram shonitale dridavrata Aham aho mamami vitarantya anugraham Harim gurum yagna vidbhujam adhishwaram Swadharma yogena yajanti mamaka Nirantaram shonitale dridavrata Aho mamami vitarantya anugraham Harim gurum yagna bhujam adhishwaram Swadharma yogena yajanti mamaka Nirantaram shonitale dridavrata Aho mamami vitarantya anugraham Harim gurum yagna bhujam adhishwara Swadharma yogena yajanti mamaka Nirantaram shonitale dridavrata Aho mamami vitarantya anugraham Harim gurum yagna bhujam adhishwaram Swadharma yogena yajanti mamaka Nirantaram shonitale dridavrata Aho mamami vitarantya anugraham Harim gurum yagna bhujam adhishwaram Sadharma yogena yajanti mamaka Nirantaram shonitale dridavrata Aho mamami vitarantya anugraham Harim gurum yagya bhujam adhishwaram Sadharma yogena yajanti mamaka Nirantaram shonitale vrata. Word for word. Aho, O all of you, Mama, unto me, Ami, all of them, Pitaranti, distributing, Anugraham, mercy, Harim, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Gurum, the spiritual master, Yagya Bhujam, all the demigods eligible to accept yagya offerings, Adishwaram, the Supreme Master, Swadharma, occupational duties, Yogena, by dint of, Yajanti, worship, Mamaka, having a relationship with me, Nirantaram, incessantly, Shonitale, on the surface of the globe, Tridavrata, with firm determination. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master and enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices, and is the supreme spiritual master as well. All of you citizens in the surface of the globe who have a relationship with me and are worshipping Him by dint of your occupational duties are bestowing your mercy upon me. Therefore, O my citizens, I thank you. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Maharaj Prithu's advice to his citizens to take devotional service is now concluded in two ways. He has repeatedly advised persons who are neophytes to engage themselves in devotional service according to their capacities of the different orders of social and spiritual life. But there he specifically thanks those who are already engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is actually the enjoyer of all sacrificial ceremonies and who is also the supreme teacher as Antaryami or Paramatma. There is specific mention of the word Gurum, which indicates that the Supreme Personality as Chaita Guru. The Supreme Godhead in His Paramatma feature is present in everyone's heart. And He'll always trying to induce the individual soul to surrender unto Him and to engage in devotional service. Therefore, He is the original spiritual master. He manifests Himself as the spiritual master, both internally and externally, to help the conditioned souls both ways. Therefore, He has been mentioned herein as Guru. It appears that in the time of Maharaj Prithu, all the people on the surface of the globe were His subjects. Most of them, in fact, almost all of them, were engaged in devotional service. Therefore, He thanked them in a humble way for engaging in devotional service and thus bestowing their mercy upon Him. In other words, in a state where the citizens and the head of the state are engaged in devotional service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they help one another and are mutually benefited. We'll just read the translation again. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master and enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices, and He is the supreme spiritual master as well. All of you citizens on the surface of the globe who have a relationship with me and are worshipping Him by dint of your occupational duties are bestowing your mercy upon me. Therefore, O my citizens, I thank you. There's many themes in the purport itself and from the verse itself. And one of them is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the master and enjoyer. In other words, like divine sovereignty and authority. So Maharaj Prithu is acknowledging that Krishna is the ultimate master and enjoyer of all actions, including sacrifices and spiritual offerings. This means that we are meant to please Krishna. He is the ultimate beneficiary. And when one does that, when one pleases Krishna, he becomes pleased. Just like everything belongs to Krishna, it's like a thief. A thief would steal, and then maybe a group of thieves would steal, and then they sit together and then they divide whatever they stole equally. They divide it equally. Everybody got a fair share, but they are not happy. They are not happy because they know it doesn't belong to them. That's why they're not happy. The underlying factor is that they are not happy is because it's not their property. It doesn't belong to them. So when we give it back to Krishna, we become very pleased. And you find that, sometimes you make an offering to Krishna, you feel satisfied within yourself. There's some feeling. There's some spiritual feeling you have. The next point that we wanted to make from the purport is that devotional service as the highest duty. And here, the theme is more of devotion and surrender. So here the citizens are being encouraged to engage in devotional service, bhakti, which Maharaj Prithu considers to be the highest form of engagement. But then again, the text also emphasizes that devotional service is performed according to one's social and spiritual position. So devotional service is just not a personal offering, but it's also an essential duty in one's spiritual life. It's both. Transcending all mundane obligations. The third point is that recognitions of a devotee's contribution. And that's quite an important aspect in spiritual life. Gratitude and humility of a leader like Prithu Maharaj. He thanks the citizen for their dedication in devotional service. And he recognizes their spiritual practices. It doesn't only benefit themselves, but it benefits the kingdom as a whole. Because one pure devotee can have an effect on the whole planet. That's how it is. And he was also benefiting from the citizens' performances. And he was thanking them for that because they were giving him the mercy by engaging in devotional service. So it's important for, like any leader in any, not only a spiritual organization, in any organization, to show gratitude. Thank you. Like even I was just recalling earlier on when I was just reading up for this class, I was thinking of Srinathji, was a devotee. He came here a couple of times from India, Chowpatty, Mumbai Chowpatty, and he had a lot of interactions with Prabhupada, but he was a Mayavadi, following Mayavad philosophy. But somehow, with Prabhupada's association and interaction, he developed some attraction to Srila Prabhupada. And in the end, when Prabhupada was leaving from Mumbai to go to Vrindavan, he drove Prabhupada to the station. And he mentioned that it's a long pastime, I won't get into the details, and it's very, very interesting. But he mentioned it here, he came here and he also mentioned it here, he came a couple of times and he spoke about it. That how he drove Prabhupada from Mumbai to Vrindavan, and anyway the train was, there was, the scheduled time for the train, but somehow Prabhupada is telling him to drive faster, but the devotees are telling him to drive at a lower speed because of bumps and Prabhupada's very fragile condition at that point in time. Prabhupada was almost like a bag of bones at that time when he was leaving for Vrindavan. But then he thought now he was going to listen to, he said, let me listen to Prabhupada. So he started driving faster, and when they went there, they realized that the train was leaving earlier. As they were getting closer, the train was leaving earlier, just about to leave. And he ran to tell the railway officials to stop the train and wait for Prabhupada. And somehow Prabhupada got in and into the train. And Prabhupada, in his frail condition, he jumped also in the train, and as the train was moving, and Prabhupada was thanking him for driving him. In his very frail condition, he said, thank you for driving me to the station. So that appreciation is an important aspect of spiritual life. And then when he came back to his car, Prabhupada had left the garland on the steering in the car for him. So that type of appreciation we should have. People may have so many challenges in spiritual life, and I'm meeting many of them, who don't come here, and I was speaking to them and trying to help them and appreciating their service they have done for the movement, for ISKCON especially. Lots of them of recent. So it's important to show gratitude. And I happened to go to his house in Chowpatty a year ago, and I met his family. My God. They were like really, really wealthy, but they're so humble and they're ready to offer all worship and respects to sadhus. It was amazing, really completely. I was touched. And the son's wife, his daughter-in-law, I met the day, and she was so humble and kind, and I was really touched. But then I saw her later in Chowpatty, and I thought maybe she has forgotten me, but she didn't. She was wishing me and with the two hands. So this is what it is, showing gratitude. So the recognition of devotees' contribution, that's another theme. Then the other aspect that is discussed in the purport is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the spiritual master. The role of God as the spiritual guide. Not as the supreme enjoyer, but also as the ultimate spiritual master. And it's mentioned there, the Chaitya Guru and Antaryami, means the Paramatma. But there again, Prabhupada mentioned the purport that his presence in everyone's heart guides the individual towards surrender and devotion. So within the heart, the Paramatma is guiding. But we read, when we read the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about how the Paramatma is the permitter and the overseer. What's that verse? Upadrast anumantacha. The permitter and the overseer. He permits and he oversees things. And he's the constant guide, Even I read in one of Prabhupada's purport, even before creation, the Paramatma is accompanying the soul. So we'll get back to that. And then the fifth point was the mutual benefit in devotion between the leader and the citizens. This is like collective spiritual welfare, like we all get together. Just like when you have lots of people together and we're chanting Hare Krishna together, it creates a very nice mood. It's collective. And it's very important for spiritual life because we are feeding off other people's energy, other devotees. And we see that, Prithu Maharaj's and his citizens' relationship is based on shared devotion. And they help him in that way. They're good citizens, they're worshipping the Lord, and he also benefits. He gets credit. He benefits spiritually. That's like the fifth point, I thought. The sixth point is that the divine mercy in action, meaning the role of the divine mercy in spiritual practice. We spoke a little bit about gratitude. The way I wrote it here, he indicates that their devotion is just not a personal pursuit, but a form of mercy bestowed upon him, the leader. This illustrates the importance of divine mercy in facilitating spiritual progress, because we all need the mercy to advance spiritually. And we're always praying for mercy from the Vaishnavas. And the leader also has an important role to play, both in a spiritual institution and as the country as a whole. And like Prithu Maharaj seemingly was in charge of all the subjects in the world. And almost all of them were engaged in devotional practices. So it was a very peaceful situation that Maharaj Prithu had created. And the leader is quite important. So often we are critical about leaders, both spiritually in spiritual institutions and of the world as a whole, of leaders. But we shouldn't be, because they are put in that position by the grace of God. You may say by bribes, this, that, and all the other things. That's there. But still they are in that position. And because they are in that position, we can understand that it was sanctioned by the Paramatma. At least that. Isn't it? Must be sanctioned. There in the 18th chapter of the Gita is explained. And that yes, everything is sanctioned by the super soul, the Paramatma. Sisi Raghunath ki. So just like when the Muslim leader, when Sanatana Goswami, I think it was Sanatana Goswami, when the Muslim leader came to see Sanatana Goswami, then Sanatana Goswami stood up. You get it? It's like, the person may be not qualified, materially, but still we pay respects. In some cases we respect people's position. See, sometimes you wonder how, like how Indra, done so much of offenses, but still gets the position. He gets the position, but he doesn't get love of God. So a leader may be voted in again as a leader, and it's sanctioned by the super soul, but he doesn't get that love of God. So therefore, sometimes people are proud of their positions and they treat the subjects differently. Both, I'm referring to both spiritually and in the world in general. But we have to be careful. Some people are just respecting your position. See, the other thing is especially spiritually, for somebody to be your authority, he must, you must love him in the first place. He can be your managerial authority, but he may not generally be your spiritual authority in the sense of giving you Krishna. That may not be the case. So divine mercy and action, in action, the sixth one I thought of was, which we spoke about. Then the harmony between material and spiritual realms. That's the seventh point. But going back to speaking about, let me just check. There's a lot of topics here, but I just want to. The Supreme Personality of God as the spiritual master. And that's quite a topic, because we all have spiritual masters, we all have spiritual authorities and guides or mentors. But what happens when the spiritual master leaves the planet? So where will that guidance come from? I'm asking. Because some people say, okay, the spiritual master has left, let me just depend on the super soul within us. But now to be to be in touch with the super soul, one has to be free from contamination of material attachment. And one has to be very sincere. Then he can consult with the Paramatma who is sitting in one's heart. And the Paramatma, as the purport always that speaks about, is always the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within, and he comes out before us externally as the instructor and the initiator, spiritual master. So the Lord, he can reside within our heart, and he can also come out before a person and give him instructions. But we know that we have a spiritual master, that's the external manifestation of the super soul, and then he guides us. And sometimes, like I'll just give you one example. Generally, I don't like to leave the morning program, when I like to follow the full program and then leave. But I just decided to leave at some point because I had to do something very urgently. And I'm thinking, and I like Tulsi Devi, I like Tulsi Puja also. I like it very much to observe Tulsi Puja because it fulfills all our desires. Fulfill all our desires. And then I'm thinking to leave, and then Madhurya comes, will you sing for Tulsi? I was just about to leave. Wow, will you sing for Tulsi? I said, yes. We don't like to refuse her. So we can take it like that. It's coming from Krishna, because and then we accept that service. It's coming from Krishna. We accept the person as our spiritual master. And if we do like that, we benefit. But sometimes people do refuse also. A lot. My throat is so they'll refuse. But we should accept, and we should just do that devotional service. It's not about, that's another important point to for discussion in Madhurya Kadambini, is about the way you sing. It's like we sometimes, like personally for myself, I don't worry about musicians. I just worry about I just hear the words the person is singing. I'm not critical towards his singing because, well, however he sings, it's okay. Because there in the Madhurya Kadambini, it's there that, if somebody is like just attracted to, how the instruments are played and how the person's voice is, and, what are you concerned about the externals, there's a slight impurity in the person's heart. There's a slight impurity. How he sings, because like yesterday, Bilbaba Mangal was telling me some devotee was singing, and the devotee, one of Prabhupada disciples, said, no, should sing, change the tune or something. But that's not what it's all about. Like even Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, towards the end of his life, which is in his biography, says how that one person was a good musician, like good in singing, and he was singing, and Bhakti Siddhanta said him to stop and said somebody else to sing who could not really sing. And the person got like a croaky voice and was singing Sri Rupa Manjari Pade. It was a very deep song. And the devotee who couldn't sing, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati wanted to hear him. Because with the person who's singing, he actually wants to hear his own voice. Therefore, you must sing without the microphone. Because that amplifies your voice. And you get attracted to your own voice. See? So yes, so therefore, we always guided by the super soul, and we guided by the externally we guided by the spiritual master. So the important thing is to check always, to consult and check. But if you advance, then you can take instruction from the super soul directly. There's so much to speak on this. In the purport of the 28th chapter of this canto, the 4th canto, text 52, it says that thus the super soul has been accompanying the living entity since before the creation. So it's a long time. And when the living entity desires to serve, the Lord helps the devotee in so many ways. And Prabhupada quotes this in so many purports as a Chaitya Guru, as a spiritual master, the guide within. And he can perform many wonderful activities beyond material estimation. Like when somebody is guided, by the spiritual master, he can do many wonderful things. So many things. And in a purport in the 41st text, this was the 41st text, I was reading, the Supreme Personality of Godhead speaks directly to the individual soul when the devotee has completely purified himself by rendering devotional service to the Lord. And Prabhupada speaks about the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 10. What's that? Tesam satatam yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupiyantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna gives that person the understanding because he's seated in everyone's heart. And he acts as that Chaitya Guru. He gives them direction. So, there's so many, like there was one devotee, he was saying how he was going to his plans was to go to a casino. And somehow, it's like he drove to the temple. And he became a devotee, got initiated, chanting 16 rounds. It was like over 20 odd years. So he was going to a casino. His intention was going to get somehow. But from within, by some good fortune, or something that he had done previously, and he came to the temple, and his whole life changed. In the Adi Leela, chapter 1, text 58, and I'll read this text. Since one cannot visually experience the presence of the Supersoul, he appears before us as a liberated devotee. Such a spiritual master is none other than Krishna himself. It is not possible for a conditioned soul to directly meet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but if one becomes a sincere devotee and seriously engaged in devotional service, Lord Krishna sends an instructing spiritual master to show him favor and invoke his dormant propensity for serving the Supreme. So quite often, we hear people say, say there's a problem to find a spiritual master. You hear this? People are saying, we have a problem finding a spiritual master. And this was in a room conversation with Srila Prabhupada and Billy O'Grady. And he said, that's not the problem. The problem is whether you are sincere. And what's the meaning of sincerity? Well, what is the definition of sincerity? What is your definition of sincerity? Well, Prabhupada's definition was simple. He said, following all the rules and regulations, no matter how big or how small. Following the rules and regulations. And he's there within the heart, and Prabhupada quotes to O'Grady about Ishvara Sarvabhutanam, 18 chapter, text 61 in the Bhagavad Gita. How he's seated and he's directing. He's seated in this material body and directing the living entity. He will give you directions. So, in one letter, Srila Prabhupada spoke about the Paramatma. He said, regarding your question of Paramatma, you are fortunate enough for your sincere service. Krishna is Paramatma, who is sitting within your heart, is now dictating. Krishna is so kind. He wants to help us as a spiritual master in two ways. He helps us from within as Chaitya Guru and expands externally as Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru. So the principle is that whatever you are instructed by the Chaitya Guru internally may be confirmed by the instructor or initiator externally. So there must be confirmation. If you feel something within, you feel like, you want to dress Radharani in a particular way, or you want to do something different from what is the norm, then rather confirm it. You have to confirm it. That is required, confirmation. And Prabhupada says, if you don't do that, then your progress will, if you do that, then your progress will be complete. If you consult, that consultation must be there. There's so much to say, but anyway. Yeah. And sometimes we don't know, sometimes we're thinking of so many things. So how do we know it's the Paramatma or the ramblings of our mind? How do we know that? How will we know that? He's there in the heart as your friend. But as we said, the Super Soul prompts you, but you cannot hear him. He's just telling you, but we don't hear. We'll do the wrong thing. In so many occasions we did that. And we stressed how a liberated soul, he can hear. But the other thing is, we also have to confirm with sadhus, devotees, and sastra. That is the system. See, and if somebody develops, like Guru Bhakti, he will get Krishna. Like Prabhupada often quotes that verse, only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both in the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. So we have to develop that same type of bhakti for the Guru as we develop, for Krishna, and then everything will be revealed. Then Krishna will manifest. The Guru is Krishna Priya Jana, meaning a very dear associate of Krishna. And he is also Radha Priya Saki, a very dear girl companion or maid servant of Srimati Radharani, like Rupa Manjari, who is Rupa Goswami. But the original Guru Tattva is Nityananda Tattva, as we know, will be coming up soon. But as we gradually descend from Nityananda and come down to us as Diksha and Siksha Gurus. And the Chaitya Guru is his manifestation, and this is Guru Tattva. And therefore, we sing every morning, we say, Sri Guru Charana Padma. It is very significant that the lotus feet of the Guru, the feet of the Guru is compared to a lotus. Sri Guru Charana Padma. So we always surrendering to the lotus feet of the spiritual master, and then we get his mercy, and then we get access to Krishna. And sometimes we wonder now who is a true disciple and who is a true guru. And I was reading in last night in Gaur Govinda Maharaj's one of his books, and he said, when we speak of Sadguru, similarly there is Sat Sisya. It's very difficult to find a Sadguru. And it is also difficult to find a Sat Sisya, meaning a disciple, a true disciple. It's difficult. And he quoted Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was a powerful Vaishnava, had lots of disciples. But just prior to his departure from the planet, he said, no one is my disciple, because no one has accepted my direction and followed it as it is. So, he had different ideas. He said different things. They twisted his instruction. So therefore we have to follow the instructions of the spiritual master if we want to, go back to Krishna. And even when this, we were talking about earlier on, the spiritual master leaves, but even when the spiritual master leaves, even from the planet of Nityadham or Goloka Vrindavan, he can inculcate that potency in the heart of a true disciple. And he can attract him back, just like he may create situations where he can meet some other sadhus and take and surrender and come closer to Krishna. So that is what he was talking about, a genuine spiritual master. And we find that some of our spiritual masters had left, and devotees are taking shelter of other devotees, and they're very blissful in Krishna consciousness. But one thing that really struck me, but I read this a while ago, and I wrote it down, where Prabhupada quotes Jiva Goswami in a purport in the Bhagavatam. He talks about the super soul. He says, in this connection, I'll just say, Srila Jiva Goswami in this connection says that the super soul, the plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead, exists in everyone's heart. But in the heart of the devotee, he reveals himself as ever increasingly new. Being inspired by him, the devotee experiences increased transcendental bliss in the execution of his devotional service. From the purport to the Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 30, text number 20. Quite an interesting point, because we know that the Paramatma is an overseer, permitter, he is neutral, he's like a referee. There's so many examples you can give. But for the devotee, it's a little different. So, this point, I just want to discuss this from the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, with the Brahman's wives blessed. See, normally we don't reject a spiritual master. The spiritual master doesn't normally reject the disciple, but sometimes one can reject the spiritual master in certain situations. Like Prahlad Maharaj rejects his father, who is his guru. Isn't it? He rejects his father. And here we find even in the Ramayana, you find Bharat Maharaj rejects his mother, who is his spiritual master. But in this particular pastime, you find the wives have rejected their husbands because Krishna was very hungry. Krishna and Balaram were hungry and they wanted food. But the husbands couldn't, they were performing their sacrifices, and this is, we said earlier on, some people are engaged in sacrifices and fire sacrifices, and they were so absorbed in that they ignored the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His request. So one may, just like the Paramatma is telling you to go in a particular direction, you may ignore it. So in the same way, these Brahmins, the husbands, they ignored the instruction. But we see the wives, they rejected their husbands who were their spiritual master and went and gave Krishna a foodstuff, Krishna and Balaram. And this is, I'll read the verses. The Brahmins then came to their senses and began to feel remorse. They thought, we have sinned, for we have denied the request of the two lords of the universe, who deceptively appeared as ordinary human beings. So then, taking note of the wife's pure transcendental devotion for Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and seeing their own lack of devotion, the Brahmins felt sorrowful and began to condemn themselves. At this point, where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he comments that the Brahmins now regarded the wives as their gurus. This is quite interesting, that the wives became the spiritual master. And criticized themselves for their own lack of devotion. The Krishna Bhakti, or pure devotion to Krishna of the wives, was impossible to see in ordinary society. So the Brahmins, they said, to hell with their threefold birth, our vow of celibacy, and all different things, like they qualified in, like their physical birth, their Brahminical initiation, their performance of Vedic sacrifice. To hell with all that. There was one, I entered Prabhu in one Vyasa Puja celebration in Vrindavan. I was there, and he was saying, to hell with this, to hell with that, to hell with that. And as he was going on, people were walking out. I was present there. Many seniors left. But he was talking more or less on the same point. To hell with all these things. Where's the devotion? That's an important point. So then, there's so much to, to speak on this point. We don't have much time. I'll just take 5 minutes more, right? 5 minutes to round it up. And then the next verse says, the illusory potency of the Supreme Lord certainly bewilders even great mystics, what to speak of us. As Brahmins, we're supposed to be the spiritual masters of all classes of men, yet we have been bewildered by our own real interest. Just see the unlimited love these women have developed for Lord Krishna, the spiritual master of the entire universe. This love has broken for them the very bonds of death, their attachment to family life. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur again comments, he says, as their husbands, fathers, or father-in-law, we are superficially the gurus or teachers of these women. But these women have attained perfection in Krishna consciousness, whereas we have fallen in the blind well of ignorance. And so how did these ladies attain that perfection? They attained it by hearing. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, he says, the cause of this loving devotion was that they was hearing about the form, qualities, and activities of Krishna from the flower ladies and the women of Raja. But the Brahmins did not mention this because they were unaware of it. So these ladies, just by hearing, so hearing is such an important aspect of Krishna consciousness. It's such an important aspect, hearing and chanting. And there, in one of the verses, I forget the verse itself, but one of the verses where Prithu Maharaj, he's saying, he's desiring that he have, the benediction that at least he had 1 million years, so that he'll be able to hear about the glories of the lotus feet from the mouths of pure devotees. So he was also desiring, just like Rupa Goswami, millions of years to hear the glories of the Lord. So this is what we should be desiring, to hear all the time. And I'll conclude with one verse that I was learning. Every night I recite that verse. Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam katam ritam shravana putesu sambritam punanti te vishaya vidusita sayam vrajanti tachana sharoruhantikam. So this verse is talking about hearing the pastimes of Krishna, the nectarian pastimes, and just by hearing that this material enjoyment is removed and one can go back home, back to Godhead. It is such a beautiful verse, but there are many verses like that. So we'll stop here. Hare Krishna. I took 1 minute extra. I'm 8:30. Huh? Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. That's cut away. But there's so much more to talk about this ladies. It is so much more interesting. Next time we could speak about it. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Anybody want to raise anything? Anybody want to, some contributions? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki. Pibantiye bhagavata atmana satam.